G'day fans of the PPL, it is the Verd, back with you again and welcome to week 4 of the D1 Power Rankings. Of course, I'm not alone, I'm joined once again by Trev CL.
Yo, what is going on, guys? This is Trev CL, and once again, happy to be here for another wonderful week of ranking PPL teams.
We had another fantastic week this week and we are going to head straight into these rankings as you can see. So two teams that we're going to kind of have down the bottom because it's very hard to rank them this week are the Maryland Terrapins and the Melbourne Victory Star. Basically, it's just because they weren't able to play their game this week. It's going to be postponed to a later date, so we feel that it's unfair to the other teams to rank them in a certain place when they haven't even played a game this week. I think it's probably just the best way to summarize that, Trev, yeah?
Yeah, I agree.
But we are going to move on to the other 10 teams that are part. We're going to rank them basically from 10 to 1, not factoring in. Obviously, the Terrapins and Victory Star would be in there if they played, but because they haven't, we're going to rank the teams that did play who currently had 4 games played. So at the bottom, we still have the Southampton Sneasels. I believe still without a win, so definitely not looking good for Jordanez. But you know what? It's just one of those seasons. I think they're a good enough team where they could pick up a few wins, but it's definitely looking like it's going to be a rough season if they don't pick it up next week. But anything else you really want to touch on with that team?
I would just like to say that it seems like Jordan is doing better and better each week, and I definitely think, at least until the Autotomy Celestial came in and ended up sweeping him, I definitely think he had the game. I thought he had the game, and then that set came, and yeah, it was just kind of the end of his run. But I do think he is playing better and better, and hopefully, if he keeps playing this well, he can pick up that first win.
For sure. Definitely, yeah, you're right. We are seeing some improvement. We're moving on to 8th and 9th. Again, two teams we have just in a bit of a different order. I think this is more preference, with they're both basically around this area. So the Seattle Onyx coming off yet another loss, and the Canberra True Cannons getting a really good win, as Trev just said, the Autotomy Celestial putting in the finest of work. I'm giving Eric like one more chance, and that's saying something because he's dropping down every week, but I have faith in him. I feel like he can perform, but if he doesn't perform again next week, there will be severe consequences for sure. Obviously, like Colton did play very well, and I do respect that. But obviously, Eric and Colton, I feel, are on about the same level right now. So I've currently just got Eric with a little bit of the edge, but I can completely understand Colton being a bit higher. Do you have anything, I guess, to say on that matter?
Well, just a couple things. Neither Mono or Eric were able to upload their week 4 game, so I'm just going off of what I heard in the game happen. So personally, I don't think Colton played too terribly well. I've definitely seen him play a lot better, at least until the Celestial came in, and then he played his Celestial very well, and I have to respect him for that. But I personally think I just didn't agree with a lot of the plays he made early on. But he was able to pull out a win, and that's where it matters. And for Eric, I really didn't want to put Eric this low, but unfortunately, every team below him had a really good win. And also, one of the reasons I didn't want to put him this low is because there was some hacks, and he 5-0 against Mono if he didn't miss fly. And of course, hacks is part of the game. And he also forgot to put the Z Crystal on Landos. So that's why he even had the click fly in the first place. But without the fly miss, he most definitely would have won. And I didn't want to penalize him too badly, but unfortunately, again, all the teams below him seemed to pick up a pretty big win. Unfortunately, I did have to drop Eric all the way down to 9.
Speaking of teams that picked up really big wins, we got to talk about the Buffalo Bills here because they just beat Ruby, and that's freaking huge. It was a really good match, but that's just massive for Will because that's another win under his belt. And, like you said, a lot of these teams, like the Seattle Onyx and others, they're losing a lot. And if Will can keep on picking up these wins, he's going to find himself not only going, up the league table, but up these rankings as well. I'm still not fully convinced just yet. He's 2-2 right now. But I definitely think that's a huge win, and is definitely going to propel him further forward in this competition.
Yeah, for sure. And this week he brought Hazard Stack. I believe both him and Ruby brought Hazard Stack, but he was able to get up a lot of his hazards, and Ruby just had nothing for it. Will did a very nice job of making sure the Pelipper couldn't defog, and I do have to commend him for that because he was able to keep up his hazards, which definitely damaged Ruby's team a lot more than Ruby's hazards damaged his team. It did get a little bit spooky at the end when all he had was, I believe, one of his offensive mons. I can't remember, Shaman, and then I believe all he had was a Vaporeon, which I don't think actually had an attack. So it did get a little spooky at the end, but he was able to pull out the victory very nicely, and I was very impressed by this win. He pretty much was in control the entire game, and yeah, he definitely deserved this move up all the way to 7 on both rankings.
Speaking of, again, big wins, and another one, I guess, to talk about from week 4 was the West Coast Wingulls getting up against the Toronto Raptors. So obviously Jolt now has lost 2 in a row, but I mean, for Paul, he's just come off also winning the TBU, and you know, he's got a lot of momentum. I think also one thing that I found, and I guess this is looking at a different coach from another league, but I'm just going to throw this as like kind of an example, but I remember when Risi Pao was part of the TBU. Well, he still is, but like when he won the TBU, and he was also part of the NPL, and he did invest a lot more of his time into the TBU, making sure he was able to win that one, and it did affect a few of his NPL matches. And I feel though, after he'd finished the TBU, he came back to the NPL and he was playing like phenomenally better. Like, I don't know if you remember that, Trev. That was, I think, season 5.
I know what I definitely know what you're talking about.
So is that
his
kind
matches
of factor.
before and after were night and day.
So I think that's the thing with Paul. I think, you know, you look at those first few matches like, oh, you know, he was struggling, but he was working really hard to make sure that TBU championship got to him. And I think now that he has done that, there's a huge weight off his shoulders, and you can just see, even from the way he played against Jolt, like, completely different, played phenomenally well, and I think was well deserving of a move up our rankings this week.
For sure.
But we're going to just quickly move on to the next 2, kind of in and out of the top 4 here. So obviously, like I said, Jolt now has lost 2 in a row. I still have a little bit of faith in Jolt because I know how good he is, and I know that, you know, the game against Norwich was very much in the balance, and, you know, Paul's just, you know, a very good opponent. But I can also understand why you've got Better Jack above him. I think both of them right now are about on the same level, I would say. And so I think next week is going to be really important to kind of, you know, see who's going to kind of stretch away from the pack. There's a lot of people right now who are like 2 and 2, and it's like a very sticky situation for a lot of them to be in, because if you win, you go 3 and 2, and that's great. If you lose, you go 2 and 3, and even at this early part of the season, it's really detrimental. So who do you see, I guess, heading into the next few weeks, getting the upper hand out of the 4th and 5th there, Trev?
Well, I do have Jack rated above Jolt here. I only do that because of the fact that, one, I look at the last 3 weeks, and Jack has been a little bit hotter than Jolt over the last 3 weeks. And 2, Jack does have the head-to-head. And I think, you know, Jack barely lost to Shadi, who you can see I have number 1. And Jolt, you know, the 2-game losing streak, he's pretty cold right now. His loss to Paul, he didn't play very well at all. I do think Jolt has the potential to go farther, but as of right now, Jack is looking like the better team out of the 2. So Jolt really needs to definitely pick up his game back to where he was in like week 1. Week 1 was phenomenal. Week 2 was pretty well played game as well. But his last 2 weeks, he hasn't prepped and played up to his usual standards, I think. So I feel like if he gets back to that, he can definitely go back to being the person, the coach, the team he was in the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like when it comes down now to the top 3 teams, for sure, I think this is, again, just one of those ones where any of these guys could be number 1. Any of these guys could be like in this top 3. Definitely feel like they are the top 3 battlers right now in the league as it stands. And we do have them in very different orders, and I'm sure we can justify and explain it. But I think one thing we're just going to agree on, though, Trev, is that these are probably the 3 best teams right now in the PPL.
Oh, for sure.
So
not just by record, but also by coaching.
I think,
and their teams.
Like, some of them like had a bit of an up and down week this week. Obviously, everyone recorded a win in the top 3 except for Ruby. But at the same time, with Ruby, he's just had such a really good start to the season that it would be a bit harsh, I feel, to just drop him down after one loss. I do understand though Shadi going to the top because the one game that Shadi did lose was a bit contentious. Like maybe if Shadi had played a bit better, like he could have won that one. But then again, his opponent also made like really random plays, so I can understand him being number one. And I guess Mono is always just one of those players that floats around near the top. He's still performing exceptionally well right now, so that's just fantastic for him. But for me, I still have Ruby at the top. I still think Ruby is the best of the bunch as it stands right now. Been playing phenomenally well this season, and again, like it was a really close game against Will. Could have gone either way, so it was very good to watch. Shadi for me, still playing phenomenally well. Has a really really good team, and next week will be very important for Shadi because he is up against Jolt, and that's going to be a really important game. Mono's against Paul, so again, like 2 really big games of the top teams there. So, I mean, Trev, how do you feel about the top 3 with the way that you ranked them?
Okay, so the reason why I have Mono last out of the 3 is just because I feel like without the fly miss, he would have lost. And again, I know hacks is part of the game, like I said earlier in the video. But I feel like his win, I feel like Ruby probably played about as well as Mono in terms of how they, what plays they made. Yeah. It's just that Ruby's opponent played phenomenally, and Mono got a little lucky. So that's the reason why I have Mono last out of the 3. And while I do have Ruby second, I don't think he's very far behind Shadi, just because, again, I think Will had to play a phenomenal game to beat Ruby, and Ruby didn't play bad at all. I think he played an average game, but I have Shadi number 1 just because outside of that one game, if you look at Shadi's 3 wins, he's played very, very well. All 3 wins have been hard-fought victories. His last 2 wins have been a little close and really good nail biters, but I think Shadi's had a very good game plan going into each game, and 3 out of the 4 times his game plan has worked pretty well. So I think Shadi has the best chance of winning a championship out of these 3, and that is why he's my number 1 team for week 4.
Well, that's basically going to do it for us, guys. Like we said, next week, hopefully after they play their games, we'll be able to rank the Torterrapins and the Victory Star a bit better. I think next week we'll just try, if they haven't played their game by the time the rankings have to go up, we'll just rank them on their 4-game record, which I think still can be pretty evenly put with the rest of the teams. It shouldn't be too bad. But for now, that's going to do it for us. Anything else you'd like to say maybe before we close off, Trev?
I think we've covered everything we need to say.
Alright, well, the one thing you guys need to do is don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the PPL channel, go check out all the coaches and analysts from both the D1 and the D2. Amazing little league we got going on here. Well, little league, it's a massive league. But also don't forget to comment down below about how you feel about our rankings, maybe things that you want to change. Also, if there's anything you feel that we missed that you would like us maybe to address next week, let us all know. But that's going to do it for us. This is Verd and Trev, and we'll catch you guys next week with some more D1 Power Rankings.